Okay, sige, it is now recording. Now, before we commence our review class, may I ask someone to lead our opening prayer? Can I ask Margo Athea to lead our opening prayer? Kahit ano, Margo. Um, you can have our Father. Closing prayer na yung glory. Okay, sige, you may start, Margo.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
And in the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Okay, thank you so much, Margo. Again, good morning, Saint Luke and Saint Joseph. If you can hear me loud and clear, without any interruptions or delays, kindly press the raise hand button. Ayan, thank you so much for responding. I hope everyone is listening as well. So mga wala nag-raise hand. Ayan, thank you. Now, just like what I've said, class, our session for this morning is intended for our review and preparation for your fourth prelim examination that will be happening on Thursday at saka Friday. But sa kuang part, class, I will be publishing the exam later at 12 p.m. Because some students kasi uh, naghangyo sila. Sir, pwede ba i-publish og sayo sir, because we have something na importante na adtuan. So, I have decided na, sige, i-publish na ako ni siya og medyo sayo-sayo. So, you will see your exam later on, 12 p.m. So, right after sa ato ang review actually. Okay? Sige. Right now, I will be presenting my slides. Naay gamay misconception sa ato ang topics class because just like what you have seen, especially sa mga LK students, no, you have received LK na yung topic is yung gayon siya, yung cycling of materials. Tama ba yun? Yung merong mga water cycle, nitrogen cycle, carbon cycle, and so on and so forth. That topic class is intended for week 7. So, dapat mo to ang last topic. However, there were a little miscommunications. Gamay lang siya na miscommunications. So, that is why I have instructed you sa to siya na day, no? Na kato siya na week is diha lang sa siya sa inyo, ha? I-keep lang na siya for the meantime, and then you are going to submit it on me pag abot sa week 7. But some of you have already submitted it. Okay? If you are wondering, asa man dapit banda ang week 7 or kaning cycling of materials, sir? Sa inyo ang LK, ang nakabutang diha class is week 2. Okay? Week 2. But that is supposed to be week 7. Right? So, kung naa siya sa inyo karon, just keep it for the meantime and isubmit na siya pagdating ng week 7. Okay? I hope you understand that well. Sige. Present ako sa kong slide. Right. So, ano ba yung mga topics natin, class, under 4th preliminary examination? We discuss about, sige daw, try to recall our topics under 4th prelim. You can put your answers in the chat box. Ayan, high and low biodiversity. Banjik. Banjik, I did not see you, I think, last Monday. Nag-adto ba ka, Banjik? Ayan, wala. So, ayan. So, wala po kabantay ni Banjik, no, last Monday. So, I hope next school year. Anyway, thank you for your answer. Apart from high and low biodiversity class, ano pa yung mga topics natin? Ecosystem, yes, we discussed about ecosystem, but very shallow lang, kay katong ato ang focus is yung biodiversity. From Angel. At saka, meron topic pala tayo na I wasn't able to discuss, no, because of, or due to some reason. Basta to siya na topic class. Ayan, taxonomy of species. Okay, or taxonomy. And later on, we are going to discuss that one. Sa later part ng ating review. But this time, let's revisit our topics. First is we have discussed about biodiversity. Okay? So in discussing biodiversity class, we need to go back to your grade 7 lesson, which is the ecosystem. Pag sinabi nating ecosystem, what does it mean? Anyone? Once we say ecosystem, ano ba yung ibig sabihin niya? It involves what? Ecosystem involves, ayan, it's a geographic area where plants, animals, and other organisms, not just living organisms, but as well as weather, landscape, that work together to form a bubble of life. Ayan, thank you so much, Jel. So that is the definition of ecosystem. Not just living organisms, but also those factors that keep these organisms alive. Okay? Such as weather, right amount of temperature, soil, water, sunlight, and so on and so forth. Okay, that is ecosystem. Ayan. So, speaking of living tsaka non-living organisms, ito na yung mas specific na mga terms. Okay? So, in ecosystem, there is biotic factor and there is abiotic factors. Now, seeing this illustration illustration on your screen right now, what do you think is the difference between biotic tsaka abiotic factor? Okay, when we say biotic, that means living organism, and or alive. And when we say abiotic factors, that means to say they are not living organism or they are not alive, kumbaga. So that is the difference between biotic at saka abiotic factor. Okay, makita naman, di ba, sa examples nila. For biotic, we have fungi, plants, protists, animals, archaea, saka bacteria. Okay? So these organisms are alive. Okay? They need nutrients, they need the abiotic factors for them to keep living. Yung abiotic factors naman, dali lang. Mga walang buhay. Okay? Air, salinity, light, humidity, nutrients, and minerals, and so on and so forth. So these factors are found in discussing ecosystem. Now, yan, biosphere class, no? So when biologist class, if they want to talk about life on a global scale, mag-start sila or they use the term biosphere. So when we say biosphere class, as you can see here, it consists of all life on Earth and all parts of the Earth in which life exists, including land, water, and atmosphere. Overall na siya class. Kumbaga, we are discussing the Earth as a whole. Okay, that is biosphere. So it contains, let me just have my laser. It contains every organism, from bacteria, those microorganisms that can only be seen if we have microscope, ayan, that are living underground, to giant trees in rainforest, whale in polar seas, mold spores, no, that are hovering through the air, and of course, as humans. We are included in the biosphere. Now, biosphere class, meron siyang mga constituents. So, let's start with the very specific or very small na part ng biosphere, which is yung species or individual. Okay? So, when you say species class, it is a group of organisms. It is an individual, kumbaga, that can breed and produce fertile offspring. Okay? Species is considered a species if it can breed and kaya niyang mag-reproduce. Okay? Now, kung pagsasamahin natin yung mga individual na yan class, for example, kita, human species, if we are present in a particular room, if we are gathered, no, in a particular room, that is called population. Human population sa isang room. Okay? Isang klase na species. Human species. So that is called population, or human population. Group of individuals that belong to the same species and live in the same area. Human population, population of dog, kumbaga, di ba? Parehas lang sila ng species. Population of bacteria, population of fungi, yan. But if a particular room class, saka room, but merong iba't ibang klaseng species, merong human, merong aso, merong cat, samahin na natin yung bacteria, samahin na natin yung mga insects na yon, we can form a community. Okay? So when we say community, it is the assemblage of different populations that live together in a defined area is called community. Okay? Iba't ibang population that live in the same area. For example, in this particular area, meron kang makita na zebra, what else? Elephant, lion, tiger. So, they form a community ng different populations. Pag sinama na natin yung mga non-living organism class or yung mga abiotic factors such as water, soil, sunlight, temperature, tinatawag na natin yung ecosystem. Okay? Ayan. With their physical environment. Yung biome naman, it is a group of ecosystems that share similar climates and typical organisms. For example, yung biome natin dito, since we are located at the proximity of the equator, so yung biome natin is, what we call this one? Tropical rainforest. Or tropical. Okay, tropical. Yan, mainit, sometimes maulan. Okay? So that is our biome. Iba naman yung biome doon sa ibabaw, sa mga polar zone kasi they receive minimal amount of sunlight. So iba yung klima doon. Okay? Freezing kumbaga. Pero dito sa atin, most of the time mainit siya. Okay? Ayan. Yung overall naman, our entire planet with all its organisms and physical environments is known as biosphere. Okay? Again, individual, population, community, ecosystem, biome, and biosphere. Now, among these terms class, ano yung gina-refer natin is, sabihin natin, organism with their physical environment. Ayan. Organism and its physical environment. Ano yung gina-refer natin? Is it individual, population, community, ecosystem, biome, or biosphere? Organism and its environment. Ayan, from Sena, from John Rafael, we have eco system. Ayan. Organisms that live in a place together with their physical environment. Pag sinabi nating may klima na included, so that is biome. Okay, climates, that is our keyword right there. Biosphere. Now, move on with biodiversity. When we say biodiversity class, what does it mean? Ano ba yung ibig sabihin ng biodiversity? You try to break down the word. When we say biodiversity, that means ayan. When you say from Angel, when you say biodiversity, if you are going to break down the terms, you say bio, that means life. When you say diversity, that is the what we call this one, the variability. Okay? Yan. So by its definition, bio meaning life, and diversity meaning variability. Different organisms. Okay? So we are going to focus only to those biotic factors kasi we are dealing with life man, okay, sa biodiversity. So we are going only to dwell on biotic factors since we are talking about life sa biodiversity. So the word biodiversity is short for the term biological diversity. Okay? So some of you have committed some minor mistakes lang good. Some of you thought na yung biodiversity is short term for biological diversify. Ayan. So medyo na wala lang siguro nato na tarong umbasa dadto sa ato ang test your knowledge, no? And some of you sa patong mga choices mo dadto. I forgot those choices, but yan. Short term siya for biological diversity, not diversify. So it refers to the enormous variety of life in an area or ecosystem, from microorganisms such as bacteria, fungi, to those organisms that can easily be seen through our naked eye. Okay? As long as may buhay class, that is included when we talk about biodiversity. Now, when we say high, diba, we have two classifications for biodiversity. When we say high biodiversity class, what does it mean? Let's have Francesca Tutor. When we say high biodiversity, Francesca, ano ba yung ibig sabihin niya? Yan, sige. You can unmute your microphone if it is working naman. Okay, Francesca? Ay, Francesca Tutor. Ayan. Dalawa pa lang Francesca nito, no? Francesca Quadra, tsaka si Francesca Tutor. Yung difference lang is yung spelling ng Francesca. Ang Quadra is Z, but ang Tutor is S. Ayan, what does it mean when we say high biodiversity? Who wants to help class? Ayan, for Lawrence Castillon, a habitat or ecosystem that has a high number of different species. high presence of life. Ayan. There are many resources in an area. Okay? So, the reason why, kung bakit very ideal, okay, from Daniel naman, there are many different types of organisms and species. Okay? Those answers of yours, class, are correct. Okay? Thank you for that. Now, the reason why there are plenty of species that can be found in this type of area class or ecosystem because of the abundance of resources. Okay? There is no scarcity of water. There is no scarcity of food. There is no scarcity of minerals or nutrients. That is why this type of place class or this type of habitat is very ideal for organisms to flourish or to survive. Kasi napakadaming resources niyan. Okay? That is why maraming organisms ang makita dito. So by its definition, it means that a region supports a wide variety of species due to its abundant resources like food and water. Example, ana, is ang Amazon rainforest. Okay, that is the best example that you can give. Itong Amazon rainforest. Located in the tropical zone near the equator. Plants can grow and produce fruit all year long. So, with that, since plants can grow and produce fruits all throughout the year, kumbaga, so animals and insects can eat those fruits or plants and they can also reproduce all year long. Okay? So the balance of that ecosystem is very kumbaga good. Okay? Abundance of natural resources, and because of that, very ideal siya for those organisms to thrive. Right? Unlike sa low biodiversity class, so what can you observe on the illustration? Ano bang pinagkaibahan niya from high biodiversity? Ayan, low number of species. Okay, that is the characteristics or characteristic of low biodiversity. There are few prominent species and a low number of other species. Why is that, class? Bakit konti lang yung mga organisms na nabubuhay dito? Ayan, so it has already been answered pala. Ayan, so kung bakit there are few species lang ang makita dito sa low biodiversity, it is because of the low resources or resources are limited, intense heat. Okay? Ayan, the intensity of heat. Isang factor din yan kung bakit konti lang yung mga organisms na kayang mag-thrive in this kind of environment. Lack of resources, environmental factors such as yung intensity ng heat, no? Ayan. So those are the factors why very few lang yung species na kayang mag-survive in this kind of ecosystem. Scarcity of water, scarcity of food, and so on and so forth. So fewer different species or organisms due to the scarcity of basic needs for survival. One of the examples of this is the Kalahari Desert. Covers a vast area of southern Africa. Yan, dito siya makita. Kalahari Desert. Now, what are the indications that a certain area has low biodiversity? Okay, it has already been answered also. If konti lang yung makita mo ng mga species in this kind of ecosystem, that means to say, yung area na yun has a low biodiversity. Okay? Konti lang yung species na makita mo doon in that kind of ecosystem. So that is the indication that this area is or has low biodiversity. Yung mga reasons naman class kung bakit yung area na yon has a low biodiversity, meron tayong iba't ibang reasons. First is environmental factors such as the intense temperature. Kung init na kaayo siya, and that means to say, then what makes it worse is wala ding tubig. So that means it is not ideal for organisms to thrive in that type of ecosystem. Habitat loss due to human activities such as cutting of trees, no? Excessive cutting of trees. Ayan. Invasive species, ito yung mga species na inintroduce ng human in a particular ecosystem na hindi naman native doon na ecosystem. Kumbaga dayo. Okay? Kumbaga dayo lang yung species na yon. So, in the long run, pag managhan na siya ng mga species class, it can disrupt the normal functioning of that ecosystem. So, invasive species, it might be helpful at some point, but in the long run class, pwede yan siyang maging pest. Magiging ano yan siya. It can disrupt the normal functioning of the ecosystem. Overexploitation, extreme hunting, tsaka overfishing. Yung paggamit ng lambat or net na napakaliit ng butas. In that case, those smaller fishes will also be caught along with the mature ones. So, sino na yung magpapatuloy sa generation ng species na yon if yung pati yung mga maliliit na isda is masali siya, no? It will also be caught along with the mature individuals or mature fishes. So, yung advice natin dito is to use net na yung butas na is hindi masyadong maliit para makatakas pa yung mga fishes na maliliit class. Pollution. Ayan. So, very obvious, no? Excessive burning of fossil fuels. Ayan. So, I think you have probably heard yung pag-arrest ng mga scientists, no, because they gave warning to the public kung hindi if we are not going to stop this excessive burning of fossil fuels 3 to 5 years, no, from now, maybe the earth would cease to function. So medyo siya, kaning alarming siya, 3 to 5 years, right? And once these kind of people class now give us warning, pag scientist na mismo ang maghatag og warning, it's a different feeling. Kumbaga, murag mabalaka na ta because they know more than us. Okay? Kabalo sila because they have the data. Okay? They study, they have the data, they have they have the graph, kumbaga. So once they give warning, dapat maalarma na dapat ang mga ang government ba or ang public, kumbaga. So we need to put attention to them. Ayan. So I hope mahatagan nato ni siya attention kaning pollution, global warming, climate change, because very obvious that we are really experiencing climate change. Kasi at this month's class, dapat termine na siya init. Okay? Hapit na ta sa summer. Okay? But what is happening right now is we have been visiting by different typhoons. Wala man siya nahitabo during my childhood. Okay? Ang panahon dati, mga bata pa may init na dapat kaayo karon ng mga panahon. But what is happening now is even summer nagaulan gihapon siya. Okay, so that is one of the indications that that climate change is really happening. Ayan, climate change. Pang number 6 pala siya. Okay, associated with global warming. Okay? Questions, class, or clarifications? Are you still there? Questions or clarifications, class? Ayan. None. Okay. Thank you so much for responding. Okay? Sige. Now, ano ba yung importance ng biodiversity? Why do we need to protect biodiversity? Why do we need to put attention, to put emphasis on protecting biodiversity? It is because, very obvious, it provides humans food. Okay? Yung mga pagkain natin is galing sa biodiversity. From meat, from vegetable, ano pa yung mga klase na pagkain ninyo, that is come from biodiversity. That is why we need to protect biodiversity. Kasi pag wala yan, wala tayong makain. Yung mga drugs tsaka medicines natin, it is derived from biodiversity. It plays important role in making and maintaining ecosystems. Ayan, it maintains and regulates the chemistry of our atmosphere and water supply, and recycling nutrients and providing fertile soils. Later on, I will be expounding this one once we reach the katong taxonomy about aning recycling nutrients. Okay, so we are now on our, actually, ito siya is kabilang siya sa week 1 na topic, but I decided to divide, no, or cut it down into 2 parts. So we are now here in the transfer of energy in trophic levels. Kumbaga, makita nyo dito, primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers, and so on and so forth. The transfer of energy from one trophic level to another trophic level, to another trophic level, to another trophic level, and so on and so forth. Okay? So some of you, just like what I have noticed, since LK pa man yung aking na-checkan sa ating 4th quarter, kasi wala pa ako ka-visit sa LMS na. Some of you are still confused about ano ba yung difference between consumers tsaka producers, 'di ba? In one of your activities, I have asked you to provide examples about consumers tsaka producers. However, class, I have noticed that there are some of you have written, for example, bacteria, rabbit, ano pa, goat, doon sa producer na column. Okay? Those organisms, class, are not producers. Why? So let me explain. Now, yung energy ba natin, class, obviously, galing sa pagkain or galing sa food na ating kinonsume, right? So, we have this enormous energy right now because we eat certain amount of food. Unless wala ka nagkaon, wala ka nag-breakfast, then wala kang, kumbaga, you have no energy. Yeah. Now, so energy producers tsaka consumers. Yes, may nag-raise ng hand. Efren, do you have question? And baka napindot lang. Anyway, now, living systems, class, operate by expending energy. Okay? Whatever we do, class, we run, we walk, we study, we think, we overthink, and even when we are just sitting right here, sleep, kumbaga, we are constantly using energy. So, bakit kailangan natin yung energy? We need energy, class, for growth, para lumaki tayo, reproduction, and their own metabolic processes. Okay, in short, if there is no energy, there are no life functions. If there is no energy, there is no life, kumbaga. Okay. Now, however, class, not all or no organism can create energy. Organisms can only use energy from other sources. Ayan. So, where do we get? Again, where do we get energy ba? Saan ba natin nakukuha yung ating energy? Yan, food. Okay? Yan. After we eat certain amount of food, we obtain certain amount of energy. Sa food siya galing. Okay? So, you probably know that you get your energy from the plants and animals you eat or yung mga meat. However, class, question. Where does the energy in your food come from? So, saan galing yung energy na present doon sa food ninyo? Saan siya galing? Diba? We know that that energy in our food, we all know na merong energy doon sa food. Okay? But saan siya galing? Saan galing yung energy na present doon sa ating food? You know, you can trace, no? You can trace. Saan ba siya galing? Try to visualize that. Yung energy na present doon sa ating food. Sige nga, try to visualize. We all know that this food class has energy. But the question is, saan galing yung energy na yun? Try to think that. Plants, okay? That's good point, no? From Lee. From what it ate before, okay? For example, imong gikaon is chicken. Kung unsa tong gikaon sa chicken, dito siya nakakuha og energy. So I think that is what John Rafael is trying to say. Okay, from what it ate before. Okay, let's lay down the information. Now, sunlight class is the ultimate energy source. Okay, sunlight is the ultimate energy source. This sunlight or this light energy will be absorbed by the isa man na maka-absorb class aning light energy to process their own to create their own food. Yan. It is absorbed by plants. Okay? One of the requirements for photosynthesis to occur is the light energy. So magsisimula tayo sa light energy, papunta sa plants, then plants will be eaten by primary consumer, and the primary consumer will be eaten by secondary consumer, and so on and so forth. So I will be showing you graph or illustrations later on. But sunlight is the ultimate energy source. Ayan. So ito yung plants class. Yung plants class, okay, they are called primary producers or autotrophs. Okay? Do not be confused about the terms. Producers or autotrophs. Bakit siya tinawag na producers? It is because they can produce their own food. Okay? Tinawag siya na producers class. Tinawag yung plants, not just plants, but also there are organisms na capable din in creating their own food, such as certain bacteria. For example, cyanobacteria. Ito siya. Yan. They are called producers class because they can produce their own food. In what process? Ano ba yung process na yun? Anong tawag natin doon? Okay, sa process na yun. Creating their own food. May specific tayo na term na ginagamit. It is the process where producers can create their own food. It starts with letter P. I've mentioned that one a while ago. Ano ba tong process na ito? Where plants can create or manufacture their own food. It is called, this process is called, ayan, exactly, Francina. This process is called photosynthesis. Producers class are capable of photosynthesis. They can produce their own food. Okay, I want you to remember that one. Primary producers or autotrophs. These organisms use light energy to produce food by assembling inorganic compounds into complex organic molecules. So I have mentioned that one of the requirements of plants to create their own food is sunlight. Apart from sunlight class, ano pa yung mga other requirements niya to create their own food apart from sunlight? Ayan. Okay, from Angel, exactly. We have water. Plants need water. Right amount of temperature. Okay? And carbon dioxide. Yan, enough amount of water, CO2 or carbon dioxide. Yan, from Akisa tsaka Francesca. Okay? Carbon dioxide class ha, not oxygen. Okay? Ayan, because I've seen some of the answers na yung molecule daw o yung gas daw na kailangan to process photosynthesis is oxygen. No, not oxygen. It's carbon dioxide. Yung oxygen class is the waste product or the byproduct of the photosynthesis. So again, yung requirement niya, yung requirement for photosynthesis to occur is we have sunlight, water, carbon dioxide, temperature, tsaka mga nutrients as well. Okay? After the overall process, ma-produce na yung oxygen. Okay? Oxygen is a waste product. Waste product siya. Yan. Dili siya requirement for photosynthesis. Magkaiba kasi yun. Magkaiba yung requirement. Okay? Magkaiba din yung waste product. Ayan. So autotrophs do more than feed themselves. They also store energy in forms that make it available to other organisms that feed them. So they also store energy that make it available for organisms that will eat them later or in the future. Yan, photosynthesis. Okay? So, photosynthesis class captures light, as you can see here in the illustration. They capture light and uses it to power chemical reactions that convert, ayan, carbon dioxide and water into, ito yung product sa photosynthesis, oxygen and energy-rich carbohydrates such as sugars in the form of glucose and starches. As you can see here in the illustration, hindi requirement si oxygen. Product siya or waste product siya ng photosynthesis. Yung gas na requirement is ito, carbon dioxide. Okay? Ayan. Saan ba galing si carbon dioxide gas? What do you think? Saan ba siya galing? Si carbon dioxide. Us. Okay? That includes us, humans. Yan. When we exhale, we release carbon dioxide as well as power plant and other forms of carbon dioxide. Okay? Yan. So, plants absorb carbon dioxide. When we exhale, we release carbon dioxide. When we inhale, we absorb oxygen. Okay? So, we are really thankful na naatay plants kay sila ang nag-give off or naghatag og oxygen sa atua. So, we should not cut trees. If we are going to really cut trees, make sure na magtanom pod ka after cutting some trees para ma-preserve nato ang trees. Okay? Ayan. Ano naman yung pinagkaibahan niya? We all know that producers can produce their own food. How about consumers class? Ano naman kaya yung characteristics ng consumers? Ano yung pinagkaibahan nila? What is their distinction? Anyone? Ano kaya yung consumers? They eat, the producers cannot make their own food. From Angel, from John, Rafael, they eat the producers. Yes. They cannot make their own food. They rely on producers for energy. Living creature that eats organisms from a different population. From Francesca, from Efren naman. The one that eat the producers. Okay, that's correct as well. They are the ones who consume what the producers make. Hence, they cannot make their own food. So, that is from Akisa. Okay. From the word itself, consumers, they need to consume, they need to eat other organisms for them to survive. Okay, that is the best definition or best characteristic of consumers. They need to consume because they cannot make their own food, unlike sa mga producers. And they are also called heterotrophs. Yung kanina, autotrophs. This time, heterotrophs. Do not worry class because I will be sending you this file. Pero naka-PDF siya, PDF format. So, no need to, kumbaga, screenshot. Yan. So, these are examples of consumers. Animals, fungi, and many bacteria cannot directly harness energy from the environment as primary producers do. So, they cannot use the energy from the sunlight to create their own food. Yan. So, organisms that rely on other organisms for energy and nutrients are called consumers. Okay? So, we have different types of consumers class depending on the type of food they consume. If plants lang yung ginakonsume niya, so that means it is considered as herbivores. They only eat plants. Kung puro karne or meat naman yung kinakain niya, okay, the organism does not eat plant or vegetables or any vegetation, that means carnivores, karne. Yan. And my distinction, if you are going to also observe class, yung teeth, no, ng carnivores tsaka herbivores is different siya. Yan. Medyo hait ang ngipon ng carnivores class because they need to really break down the meat. Yan ang mausap din nilang tarong, unlike sa herbivores. Omnivores naman, just like us, we eat both plants tsaka animals or meat. Scavengers, sila yung mga organism na nagkakain ng mga tira-tira, yung mga tira-tira ng other organisms. So, eat bodies of dead organisms. Ano yung, prominent example for scavengers? What are examples? Ayan, from Van Jake tsaka dyan. We have vulture. So, yung pinaka, sikat na scavengers. Apart from this class, isa sa mga importante. Yes, apel. Yan. It is also included. Yeah, so next. Yan, apel na siya. John Rafael, it is included in the scavengers. Okay? I've seen documentaries kasi that these type of organisms as well, nag-devour din siya sa mga dead organisms. Yan. Now, one of the important class ng mga consumers is we have the decomposer. They feed on the remains of other animals. So, yung mga tinatawag nating bacteria, fungi, yan siya. Yan. So, decomposers play an important role in the ecosystem. Why? Why they are considered, why are they considered as important constituent of the ecosystem? Bakit siya importante? Because they digest dead matter and they put nutrients back into the soil. So when they decompose dead organism class, itong mga decomposer, when they decompose organism, they are putting those nutrients na nakastack doon sa dead organism. So they are putting those nutrients back into the environment or back into the soil. So magiging available na naman yung mga nutrients na yon doon sa soil. So mag-thrive yung mga plants in that ecosystem because there are kumbaga yung nutrients is abundant, no? So that is one of the important functions of decomposer. They put back those nutrients sa environment. So pag wala itong decomposer, so yung mga nutrients is manatili doon sa body ng dead organism. Mas-stack siya dito or mas-stack ang mga nutrients dito. Dili siya mubalik. Dili mubalik sa environment. That is why decomposer is really important. Hugaw man siya tanahon, but it plays a vital role. Okay? Ayan. Apart from decomposers class, we also have these detritivores. They act like decomposers. But detritivores, as you can see here sa mga example, it can easily be seen through our naked eye. Flies, beetles, earthworms, snails, crabs, and so on and so forth. Okay, so we are now in the energy flow in an ecosystem. Second topic pa rin ito siya. So how does energy flow in an ecosystem? Paano ba siya mag-flow? So that by eating and being eaten. So in that case, mag-flow yung energy from one organism to another organism to another organism. And it can be explained through the concept of food chain and food web. Ayan, as you can see here in our illustration. The flower will get or will absorb light energy, then process na yung photosynthesis. So now, meron na siyang energy. Now, that energy will be passed on the caterpillar once kaunon sa caterpillar yung plants. So, yung caterpillar na, meron na siyang energy. Then, the caterpillar will be eaten by the frog. So, that energy will be passed papunta sa frog. Then sa snake naman. And then later, yung owl, natripan niya sa snake, kanon niya. So that energy possessed by snake will be passed to the owl. So energy flows from one organism to another organism by eating and being eaten. Pag kumain yung organism and pagkakainin yung organism na yun. But, question class, yung nakuha ba, for example, yung nakuha ba na energy ni frog from caterpillar is 100% ba efficient? Yes or no? Ayan, mag-decrease. Okay? The frog class, ayan, cannot get the 100% energy from caterpillar. It is because Si caterpillar, kailangan niya din gamitin yung energy niya for other life processes, such as movement, such as reproduction, ano pa ba? Other important life processes, and it is released to the environment in the form of heat. That is why 10% lang per tropic level ay ang maka-absorb ng energy. 10% lang ng energy ang kaya ma-absorb ng organism from the lower tropic level. So let me just explain later on. Okay, meron tayong illustration mamaya. Okay, so ayan, food chain. So there's no it's understandable naman, madali lang siya intindihin. Ayan, food chain. So from grass, the grass will be eaten by grasshopper. Grasshopper will be eaten by frog. And notice class itong mga primary, secondary. Tinawag siya na primary consumer class itong grasshopper kasi siya yung first na consumer. Okay? Yan. Secondary consumer because siya yung ikalawa na consumer dito sa food chain. And so on and so forth. Okay? Yan. And food chains can vary in length. Yan. Pwede hindi lang mag-stop dito sa hawk. Okay? Pwede pa merong other organisms and so on and so forth. So, they vary in length. Now, magkakaroon ng food web class, it is because organisms tend to eat more than one type of food. For example, si eagle, dili lang man kay frog iyang kaya kaunon. It can also eat this type of organism, itong thrush. It can also eat python. Okay? That is why meron tayong very complex na na food web. Okay? It is because organisms eat more than one type of food. However, class, we can trace food chain in a food web. So, natin food chain sa food web. Meron tayong food chain sa food web. For example, corn. Corn will be eaten by grasshopper. Grasshopper will be eaten by frog. Frog will be eaten by python. Python will be eaten by eagle. That is food chain. Okay? Yan. Food chain in a food web. So, mas complex siya compared to food chain. Yan. Many animals eat more than one kind of food. So, this time, pyramids of energy. So, this is what I was trying to explain to you a moment ago. No, hindi lahat ng energy ang ma-absorb ni primary consumer from primary producer. So, si primary producer, for example, will possess 10,000 joules of energy. However, once kainin siya ni primary consumer, only 10% of that energy will be passed to the primary consumer. Instead 10,000, 1,000 joules of energy lang yung mapasa. Bakit? Because primary producers class need some amount of energy for its reproduction, for its growth, and other important life processes. That is why 10% lang ang ma-absorb or makukuha ni primary consumer. At the same time, when secondary consumer will eat the primary consumer, it will only absorb 10% of that 1,000 joules. So, maka-absorb lang si secondary consumer og 100 joules of energy. Bakit? Again, primary consumer will use some fraction of that energy for its reproduction, for growth, for movement. Okay? Mating. Yan. Kailangan nyo ng energy. Okay? And it is released in the environment in the form of heat. So that is what also we call Ayan, so this is very accurate, no? The answer of Jacob. That is why our parents tend to advise us to eat vegetable kasi tama talaga that vegetable contains high amount of energy. Okay? Kung gusto ka ma-energize good imong lawas, then eat vegetable class. Okay? So this is really right answer from Jacob. Dapat sir gulay yung kainin dahil ang meat 10% lang ang energy. Okay? So kain ta, kaon ta og gulay. Dili lang kay puro karne. Right? And kani 10% class, we also call it 10, let me type it in the chat box. 10% rule of energy. Yan, 10% rule of energy. Okay? Only 10% of energy will be passed to another trophic level. Okay? So again, you need to eat vegetable for you to have high amount of energy. Not just meat. Ayan, so medyo mahaba niyan siya, but just like what I have explained to you a while ago, summarizes this text or this definition. Ayan. So, do you have any questions, class, regarding sa ating topic, yung flow of energy in the ecosystem? Do you have any clarifications or confusions about that lesson? Okay, none for now. Okay, thank you so much. This time, ito na yung topic na I wasn't able to discuss to you. Okay, but mag-appear ito siya sa exam. So that is why we need to also dwell with this topic. Classification of living things. This one class, it involves some, searching on the internet. Okay? Later, you will understand why, kung bakit kailangan natin siya i-search. Okay? So, classification of living things. First question, class. Why do we need to classify living organisms? Try to answer this one. Bakit kailangan natin i-classify yung mga organisms? Kailangan pa na, sir? As long as buhay na siya, then that is living organisms. But why do we need to classify living organisms? For John Rafael, to know their origins, okay, that is one. Okay? Para malaman natin kung sino ba yung mga ancestor ng organism na yun. Saan ba sila nagmula? Saan ba sila galing? Okay? So that's one of the kumbaga reasons why we need to classify living organisms. Apart from that, so we can identify and differentiate them, okay, from Francesca, because species cannot procreate with one another if they are different. Yes, yan. According to Sina. Okay? So later, we have plenty of explanation. But, yan. So why do we need to classify living organisms? I will answer that one later on. But this time, class, try to imagine. Can you imagine a school without sections? Walay St. Luke, walay St. Gregory, walay St. Joseph, walay St. Helen. Di ba gubot kaayo? For example, kato sa World War II. For example, when you were in the covered court, naka-arrange man mo ato. Iba yung St. Luke, iba din yung St. Joseph, iba din yung St. Helen, iba yung St. Gregory. Okay? Paano yan if there is no section? If, for example, hindi kayo in-arrange. Pag sinabi ni Sir Nico na, where is the St. Luke? Saan yung St. Luke? Then may magtataas na kamay doon sa likod. Meron ding magtataas na kamay dito sa harap. And the other side as well. So medyo siya. Medyo gubot siya. Medyo siya sa mata. No? Gubot, sir, or libog. Okay? So, try to imagine. Apart from that, what if you have to look for someone in school but you do not have any idea what grade level and section he or she is in. For example, your friend is trying to look for you or find you, but yung school is walang grade level, walang section, okay? And siya, and so on and so forth. So, mahihirapan ka na hanapin yung friend mo na yon. Okay? Kasi hindi naka-arrange. Walang sectioning, walang grade. Apart from school, have you been in a grocery store? I think you've been in a grocery store along with your parents, mother or father. What if all items in a grocery store are not labeled and not properly arranged? For example, in this area, ay merong mga gamot. Then sa ilalim is can naman. Then sa ilalim is mga gulay. Then sa next is yung mga mga soft drinks. Yan. Next is mga what we call this one, may mga nakalagay na tinapay. So napaka kumbaga napaka chaotic niya tingnan. Okay? Yan. So that is why we need to arrange. We need to pile them. Hard to find and locate what you need. Okay? That is really accurate, no? Mahihirapan tayo hanapin kung ano yung bibilhin natin. Saan kaya nakalagay yung yung mga dilata? Saan kaya nakalagay yung mga noodles? Ayan. Kasi hindi sila naka-properly arrange. Okay? Books naman in a library. What if dili sila organized? For example, me, I'm really a fan of reading books, no? Like almost every week I visit national bookstore or kaning sa mga nag-sale na mga book. What if wala sila naka-organize? So it is very hard for me to find a book that I'm trying to purchase. I'm a fan of kasi fiction, saka ito yung mga self-help books. So paano kung hindi siya naka-arrange? So it's very hard for me to, or very difficult for me to locate those books that I am trying to buy. Okay? So imagine how many living organisms we have in the entire world. Napakadaming organisms, class. Anyway, nakatry naman. Who among you here loves reading book? Sabay, ganahan ka ay mo basa yung libro, dari. Can I see a virtual hand up? Ayan, so it's really good to know, no, that there are plenty of you loves reading. I can really guarantee you guys, once you are consistent, you continue that kind of habit, no, reading books, it will really help you. How I wish I have discovered that hobby or habit sa inyong edad. Kay discover na ko ang love of reading of books kasi late na masyado. When I was in third year college. Sa akong high school life, digid ko nagabasa, class. Swear, no? In my entire elementary, sa akong high school, first year or second college, digid ko nagabasa. I found the kumbaga the fancy of reading book when I was in third year college. Very late na siya, but it is really fulfilling. Dako siya natabang sa ko actually. Ang kaning pagbasa og libro. Okay? I will find the benefits of reading books. Yan. Basta i-continue lang na siya na habit. I can really guarantee you will really succeed in what you are trying to achieve in life. Yan, including comics, and okay, what do you mean by comics? Dili kay ko nagabasa og kaning wala pa siguro tayong kaning, for example, kaning mga comics or sabay ginabasa niyo. Sabay mga sikat ron kaning mga anime, no? Wala pa kay kuana. Siguro mga later ka na, naantay na sobra-sobra na time. Ayan. Anyway, class, just like what I've said, daghang organisms, no? Some organisms pa nga is, nag-extinct na siya before siya na-discover. Okay? Ayan. So, imagine how many living organisms we have in the entire world. So, how can we get proper information about these organisms if they are not properly arranged? Okay? Yan, kailangan nato siya i-arrange, class. That is why we have this taxonomy. Okay? Later. So, how can we identify them without a guide or basis? So, that is the reason why meron tayong taxonomy. It is the scientific system that classifies organisms into groups based on their characteristics is known as taxonomy. So, branch of science. And it dwells with classifying organisms. So, kung merong organism na bagong na-discover, i-classify siya, saan kaya ito siya na grupo? Okay, dito. Dito ba? Ayan. So, that is how taxonomy works. It involves classifying organism. And, sino ba yung, kumbaga, naka-discover or nag-work about taxonomy? We have Carl Linnaeus, the father of taxonomy. He is a Swedish botanist. He specializes plants, botanist. Okay, it is botany, the study of plant. Medical doctor and modern classification of living organisms, or the Linnaean system. He proposes Linnaean system. So, what do we mean by Linnaean system of Carlos Linnaeus? Ang Linnaean system, class, it has two parts or two components. Levels of classification and binomial nomenclature. When you say levels of classification, class, largest to smallest. And when you say binomial nomenclature, we have the genus and species. So, sige. I know that it's your first time encountering these words or terms. Now, let's first discuss the levels of classification. Okay, ha? Ito yung Linnaean system, levels of classification, and binomial nomenclature. Pag sinabi nating levels of classification, class, we have 8 categories. Familiar with this one. Domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. Familiar na? Nabasahan ba natin siya sa itong libro? If yes, can I see a virtual hand? Diba? I have instructed you to read the book because that will serve as your kumbaga reference or guide in answering that activity. So this is the level of classification. We have 8 categories. Domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. Sa domain class, ito yung pinakamalaki na category. It includes all organisms. Greatest number of organisms. Broad siya. So, very obvious naman sa form ng ating kumbaga pyramid na nakabaliktad. So, broad siya, domain. Yung pinaka-specific naman class, we have the species. List number of organisms or specific. So, from domain, broad ha, okay? General, kumbaga. And to a more specific na species. From general to specific. Domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. Now, when we were in college, we are asked to memorize this one. Yung pagkakasunod niya. Okay? Now, to help you memorize this one, yung pagkakasunod, just remember this mnemonic. Ayan. Did King Philip come over for great spaghetti? Okay? Ayan. Try to remember this mnemonic. Did King Philip come over for great spaghetti? So, D for domain, K for kingdom, P for phylum, C for class, O for order, F for family, G for genus, and S for species. Okay? Did King Philip come over for great spaghetti? From general, from broad, to a more specific, which is ang species. Right? Okay? Questions, clarifications before I proceed? I think hapit na tamahuman. Questions, class, or clarifications? Okay, may questions doon na list, no? Yung pagkakasunod from broad to a more specific. So, mag-start ka sa domain, followed by kingdom, phylum, until species. From general to a more specific. For example, taxonomy of human, for adult human, male and female. Domain, yung domain natin class, tao ito. For example, human ha, i-classify natin yung human. Domain, eukarya. Bakit eukarya? Because we are composed of multiple cells, many cells, billion of cells. Animalia, okay? Kingdom Animalia. Phylum Chordata, since we have backbone. Class Mammalia, since we are mammals, humans are mammals. Order Primates, ayan. Family Hominidae, okay? And genus Homo, and species natin is Sapiens or Homo sapiens. That is why ang pag-name sa organism class is mag-base lang tayo sa genus tsaka species. So humans, in scientific term, we are Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens. Mag-base lang tayo sa genus tsaka species. Meron pa, marami pang examples niyan. But this one, this is how we classify human. We are member of domain eukarya, member of kingdom Animalia, member of phylum Chordata, we are member of class Mammalia, we are member of order Primate, we are member of family Hominidae, yan. And genus natin is Homo and species is Sapiens. Pag sinabi, if someone will ask you, ano yung scientific name ng human? Then you are going to respond with Homo sapiens. Mag-base lang kayo dito sa genus tsaka species. Alright? Homo sapiens. Let's start with the domain. But we are not going to discuss entirely, no, this one. Mag-stop lang tayo ata sa kingdom. Okay? So, domains. The largest category. Yung broad class. Yung sa ibabaw. Okay? So, yung did King Philip come over for great spaghetti? So, domain. We have 3 domains class. Archaea, bacteria, tsaka eukarya. Archaea, bilisan na natin siya ng konti ha. Anyway, I will be sending this one to you later. Prokaryotic, that means single-celled sila. It is composed of single cell, isang cell lang. Microscopic, and when we say microscopic class, it can only be seen when we have microscope. Non-pathogenic, that means they cannot harm us. Okay? Some of them. Domain bacteria. Prokaryotic, single-celled. Composed of one cell only. Microscopic and pathogenic, such as this one. The cyanobacteria. Okay? Which is capable of photosynthesis, but harmful siya because it can cause algal bloom. Yan, itong green. Algal bloom. And search for that one class. It can harm the aquatic organisms. Since pagdaghan ng inani class, inani, Pag, pag yung water is covered na with cyanobacteria or algae, the sunlight cannot longer penetrate towards the sea or the ocean, kumbaga. So, dili na maka-receive o sunlight yung mga tawag niyan, organisms na present doon sa ecosystem na yun. Anyway, domain eukarya, kita, just like what I've said, example kita, eukaryotic, that means we are multi-celled organisms. We are composed of billions of cells. Meron tayong nucleus. Ano gani yung makita sa nucleus class? What can we find inside the nucleus? Anong molecule ang makikita natin sa nucleus? Ano ba yung makita natin inside the nucleus? We can find diba, nag-discuss about genetics. Inside the nucleus, we can find our DNA or genetic information. And we also have organelles. Kingdom, ito na yung tinatawag nating 6 kingdom or kingdoms of life class. We have Animalia, Kingdom Animalia, Kingdom Plantae, Kingdom Fungi, Kingdom Protista, Kingdom Eubacteria, and Kingdom Archaea Bacteria. So, bilisan lang natin ng konti. When we say Kingdom Archaea Bacteria, single-celled organism with no nucleus. Paano yan, sir? Kung walang nucleus, saan natin makita yung DNA? It is suspended in the liquid part of the cell or tinatawag nating cytoplasm. Yan, makita doon yung ating DNA. Yung DNA ng bacteria since they have no nucleus. And they can thrive in extreme environments. Ito mga archaea bacteria. You have acidophiles. For example, ng archaea bacteria class, acidophiles, these organisms can thrive in acidic environment. Methanogens, okay, full of methane. Thermophiles, ayan. Napakainit na environment. Pwede mag-thrive yung ating archaea bacteria. And psychrophiles. Okay? Kingdom Eubacteria, tinatawag nating true bacteria. Some of them are pathogens. That means it can cause harm to our body. And some of them are non-pathogens. Good for human body. However, class, unlike archaea bacteria, itong Eubacteria class, they cannot withstand in extreme environments. They cannot survive in a very hot environment, for example, or in a very acidic environment. Example of class? Kaning mga bacteria or Eubacteria that is good sa ating katawan. Lactobacillus acidophilus, ayan, and Bifidobacterium bifidum. Okay, medyo mahirap siya i-pronounce, but these Eubacteria class are living inside our gut, okay, digestive tract. So they will basically help us in digestion. So good sila ng mga bacteria or Eubacteria. Other Eubacteria naman are harmful. They can induce tuberculosis, anthrax, and other diseases. But these are example of good bacteria. Lactobacilli and Bifidobacterium bifidum. Yan, medyo difficult siya i-pronounce, but ganyan talaga yun siya. Kingdom Protista, simplest eukaryotes. Some of them are composed of single cell only, but some of them are composed of multiple cells. Amoeba, Paramecium, and Euglena. Search na lang nyo. Ito siya ha. Plant-like in appearance. Fungi naman, plant-like in appearance but incapable of photosynthesis. such as mushroom. They might look plants, but they are not plants. They are fungi. And they are incapable of photosynthesis. Fungi are multicellular except for yeast, or ito yung ginahalo natin sa ating tinapay para lumaki yung yung appearance niya or yung size niya. Yan, yeast class is an example of fungi. Kingdom Plantae, different plants capable of photosynthesis. Yan. Kingdom Animalia, divided into two, vertebrate tsaka invertebrate. Pag sinabi natin vertebrate, they have backbone. Pag sinabi natin invertebrate, they do not have backbone, such as jellyfish. Yan. Kingdom Animalia, invertebrate, vertebrate. Ayan, so we are done. So, do you have any questions, class, or clarifications before we end our discussion? Ito siya, class. Sa exam nyo, class, okay? Sa exam nyo, class, we are going to give you one organism. Listen ha, listen. We are going to give you one organism and you are going to classify them. Okay? Magbibigay kami ng isang organism and you are going to classify them. For example, dog. Okay, dog. Anong domain ng dog? Anong kingdom niya? Okay? What phylum? What class? Anong order? Anong family? Anong genus tsaka species ng dog? Okay? We are going to give you organism and you are going to classify that organism from domain down to species. Okay? Nasabtan ba siya, class? If yes, kindly press the raise hand button. Ayan, thank you so much. We are going to give you one organism and you are going to identify the domain, kingdom, until sa species. Okay? So we are done with our discussion. Thank you so much, class, for your attendance or for participating. Okay, let me just screenshot note for the Ayan. Okay. So it's already 12 p.m. If you have no questions or clarifications, again, can I see a virtual hand? Ayan, thank you so much. Nanaboy nangaon sa inyo, Habya? Okay. Sige. So I think we're good to have our closing prayer. Thank you so much, guys. So, all together, in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, the world without end. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. So goodbye, class, and see you next week for your SIP. Thank you.
Bye po. Thank you po.
Bye-bye. God bless everyone. And have a nice day too.